Mental health, it's this incredibly complex puzzle, right? A landscape of both really deep distress and, at the same time, amazing resilience. So, when we start talking about psychopathology, which is really just the study of these experiences, how do we even begin to piece it all together? Let's dive in. Let's start with a story. This is about Nasha, a young woman from the novel Nervous Conditions. She's clearly in a lot of pain, but the people around her, they just see her as making a scene. But Nasha knows she needs help from someone who actually understands her world, her context. This story just perfectly captures a universal problem. How we see and react to someone's distress can change everything. And that really gets to the core question, doesn't it? When we see someone suffering like Nasha, how are we supposed to make sense of it? What tools do we have to get past simple, easy labels and find some real, genuine understanding? Well, today, we're going to explore a really powerful way of thinking about just that. So here's the game plan. We're going to look at this puzzle through three different but connected lenses. First up, we'll get into the brain, our biological hardware. Then we'll switch to the self, our inner world of thoughts and feelings. And finally, we'll zoom way out to the world to see the social and cultural forces that shape who we are. By the end, you'll see how all these pieces click together to give us the whole picture. All right, let's kick things off with lens one, the brain. This perspective grounds us in our biology. We're talking about how our genetics, the very structure of our brain, and all that complex chemistry lays the foundation for our mental lives. And a huge part of that foundation is something called neurotransmitters. Think of them like tiny chemical messengers zipping around in your brain. They are absolutely essential for, well, everything, from keeping your heart beating to shaping your emotions. They carry the signals that make it all work. Now, when these chemical signals get out of whack, you can start to see real problems. For example, when the cells that use a chemical called acetylcholine start to break down, we see a link to dementia. Other kinds of imbalances are tied to conditions like schizophrenia and anxiety. It just goes to show how much our brain's chemistry really matters. But here's the thing, and this is super important. While our biology is a massive piece of the puzzle, it's not the only piece, not by a long shot. If it were that simple, we would have figured this all out by now. To really get it, we have to go deeper. So let's add another layer to our understanding. Welcome to Lens 2, the self. This is where we move from the hardware of the brain to the software of our minds, our inner world of thoughts, feelings, memories, and even our unconscious drives. This is the world of psychology. And you can't really talk about this stuff without bringing up Sigmund Freud and his idea of the defense mechanism. He suggested that our minds have these clever, totally automatic strategies to shield us from thoughts and feelings that are just too painful or overwhelming to deal with. They're our mind's secret service, working behind the scenes. For example, take repression and suppression. They sound almost the same, but the difference is huge. Repression is completely unconscious. You push a painful memory so far down, you don't even know you're doing it. It's just gone. But suppression, that's a conscious act. You know the painful thought is there, and you're actively trying to ignore it. Both are ways of coping, but they come from completely different levels of awareness. But psychology isn't just about our hidden defenses and problems. Thinkers like Abraham Maslow totally flipped the script. He was more interested in our potential for growth. His famous hierarchy of needs suggests we're all driven to become our best selves, what he called self-actualization. So from his point of view, mental distress isn't just a bug in the system. It could be a signal that our most basic needs for safety, for belonging, for self-worth aren't being met. Okay, so we have the brain and we have the self. But here's the thing. Neither one exists in a bubble. And that brings us to our third and widest lens, the world. Now we have to zoom out and look at the incredible power of our social, cultural, and even political environments in shaping our mental health. The psychiatrist Frantz Fanon had this profound insight working in colonial Algeria. He argued that political oppression isn't just an external force that holds you down. It actually gets inside your head. It can lead to what he called depersonalization, a feeling of being disconnected from your own identity, your own self. It's a powerful reminder that big political realities can cause deep, personal psychological wounds. And of course, different cultures have entirely different playbooks for what it means to be well. Many traditional African healing models, for instance, are deeply rooted in the community. Healing isn't some lonely journey you take by yourself. No, it's about restoring harmony to the group through relationships, rituals, and even collective joy like singing and dancing. It's a vision of health that's all about we, not just me.
This really shows you that context is everything. In a Western clinical setting, a certain set of experiences might get a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But in a Hosa cultural context, that very same experience might be understood as amafufuyana, a state of being possessed by spirits. These aren't just different words, they are fundamentally different ways of making meaning out of suffering.
All right, so we've looked through three lenses: the biological brain, the psychological self, and the sociocultural world. Each one gives us a valuable piece of the story, but none of them tells the whole story on its own. So, how do we put them all together?
Well, that's where something called the biopsychosocial model comes in. It's a framework that says, hey, let's stop arguing about which lens is the right one. It argues that these three areas, the biological, the psychological, and the social, aren't competing theories. They are complementary, essential parts of one single, incredibly complex system.
So, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this: true understanding of mental health means we have to stop looking for a single, simple cause. It's not just your brain chemistry. It's not just your childhood. It's not just society. It's the constant dynamic interaction between all three: the brain, the self, and the world. And seeing it this way leaves us with a really powerful question to chew on. If our well-being is this intricate dance between our biology, our psychology, and our world, then how can we build communities that actually support all three? How do we create families, schools, and workplaces that nurture not just our bodies or our minds, but our whole selves? Now that is the puzzle we all have a piece in solving. Thanks for joining us.